My name is Arlene, and at 58 years old, I thought I had seen everything life could throw at me. Standing on the pristine sands of Malibu Beach, watching final preparations for my daughter's wedding, I felt a mixture of pure joy and quiet unease. The ocean breeze carried the scent of jasmine from the floral arrangements, and everything looked absolutely perfect. But I never expected that the man my daughter was about to marry would demand something so outrageous that it would change everything. Before we dive into this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoy real-life stories that prove sometimes the biggest lessons come wrapped in the most unexpected packages. 15 years ago, my world shattered when my husband died in a car accident. Amanda was only 12, and suddenly I became both mother and father overnight. Those early days blur together now, a haze of grief, fear, and determination. I remember sitting at our kitchen table, surrounded by bills, wondering how I was going to keep our house and give Amanda the life she deserved. The solution came in the form of exhaustion. I took a morning job at First National Bank, where I worked as a customer service representative, handling account inquiries and loan applications. The pay was decent, but not enough for a single mother in our expensive California town. So I added evening shifts at Romano's Italian restaurant, serving tables until closing time. Some nights I didn't get home until after midnight, only to wake up at 6 the next morning to start all over again. I sold our beautiful four-bedroom house with the garden where Amanda used to play, and we moved into a modest two-bedroom apartment closer to town. Amanda cried when we packed up her dollhouse, and I promised her that someday we'd have space for everything again. I kept that promise in my heart, even when keeping it seemed impossible. Every penny I earned went toward Amanda's future. Private school tuition took the biggest chunk, but I refused to compromise on her education. Piano lessons, every Tuesday ballet classes on Thursdays, and summer camps that enriched her mind and spirit. I remember driving across town after a double shift to pick her up from dance recitals, my feet aching in my restaurant shoes, but my heart full watching her graceful movements on stage. The hardest part wasn't the physical exhaustion or the financial stress. It was missing pieces of Amanda's childhood. School plays where I arrived late, sporting events I couldn't attend because I was working quiet evenings that became rushed homework sessions between my shifts. But Amanda never complained. She understood even at 12 that we were a team fighting for something better. I made midnight birthday cakes when the bakery was closed, sewed Halloween costumes by hand when store-bought ones were too expensive, and turned our tiny living room into a dance studio when Amanda wanted to practice. Every sacrifice felt worth it when I saw her smile when she brought home honor roll certificates, when her teachers praised her kindness and intelligence. Years passed in this rhythm of work, save and invest in Amanda's dreams. She blossomed into a remarkable young woman, graduating valedictorian from her private high school and earning a full scholarship to UCLA. I cried during her graduation speech, not from pride alone, but from relief that all those double shifts had led to this moment. College flew by, and suddenly Amanda was 26, working at a prestigious marketing firm in downtown Los Angeles. She had her own apartment in a trendy neighborhood, a reliable car, and a bank account that didn't require constant monitoring. My baby had become a successful, independent woman, and I finally allowed myself to believe that the hardest chapters of our story were behind us. That's when Tyler entered our lives. Amanda met him at a networking event for young professionals, and from her first phone call about him, I could hear something different in her voice. She described him as tall, handsome, and incredibly smart. He held an MBA from a respected university and worked at a financial consulting firm. When she brought him to dinner at my apartment 3 months later, I understood her excitement. Tyler arrived with flowers for me and wine for dinner, impeccably dressed in a navy suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He was charming, asking thoughtful questions about my work at the bank and my years as a single mother. He praised Amanda constantly, telling me how lucky I was to have such an amazing daughter, how well I had raised her despite challenging circumstances. During that first dinner, Tyler spoke passionately about his career goals, his plans to start his own consulting firm someday, and his desire to build a life with Amanda. He seemed genuinely interested in our family history, asking about Amanda's father, and expressing sympathy for our loss. When he helped clear the table and complimented my simple pasta dinner as if it were a five-star meal, I began to warm to him. Over the following months, Tyler became a regular presence in our lives. He took Amanda to expensive restaurants, weekend trips to wine country, and Broadway shows when they traveled to New York. She glowed with happiness in ways I hadn't seen since she was a child opening Christmas presents. After 18 months of dating, Tyler proposed during a romantic getaway to Napa Valley, presenting Amanda with a stunning diamond ring that caught light like captured starfire. When Amanda called to tell me about the engagement, I could barely understand her through her tears of joy. She wanted a beach wedding, something elegant, but not too formal, where our closest friends and family could celebrate their new beginning. I immediately offered to help with expenses, knowing that weddings cost far more than a young couple could easily afford, even with their combined incomes. Amanda tried to protest, but I insisted. After all those years of sacrifice, I wanted to give my daughter the wedding of her dreams. The first subtle change happened about a month after the engagement. Amanda's weekly dinner visits became sporadic, then monthly, then almost non-existent. When I asked if she was too busy with wedding planning, she assured me everything was fine, but her voice carried a new distance that made my heart ache. The second change was harder to ignore. Amanda stopped sharing details about her daily life. Our phone conversations, once filled with stories about co-workers, funny customer interactions, and her latest thoughts about everything from politics to pop culture, became brief exchanges about wedding logistics. When I asked about her job or her friends, she gave short answers and quickly changed the subject. Tyler began inserting himself into conversations about money with increasing frequency. What started as helpful suggestions about maximizing the wedding budget evolved into detailed lectures about my financial decisions. He criticized my modest apartment as not building equity, questioned my conservative investment approach as too risk-averse, and suggested that I was limiting Amanda's potential by not being more ambitious with my money. During one particularly uncomfortable dinner at Amanda's apartment, Tyler examined my 10-year-old sedan with the scrutiny of a car dealer and announced that I needed something more reliable and professional-looking. When I explained that my car ran perfectly and was paid off, he launched into a speech about how successful people invest in their image and how my penny-pinching mindset reflected poorly on Amanda's achievements. These comments might have seemed helpful to an outsider, but they felt invasive and condescending to me. I had managed my finances responsibly for 15 years, building a modest but secure foundation while raising Amanda alone. Tyler's critiques implied that my careful approach was somehow wrong, that I was holding my daughter back by not spending more lavishly. The wedding budget discussions became increasingly one-sided. What began as a simple beach ceremony expanded into elaborate plans for an oceanfront resort, upgraded catering, professional photography, live music, and luxury transportation. Each addition came with Tyler's enthusiastic endorsement and Amanda's guilty agreement. When I expressed concern about costs spiraling beyond our initial discussion, Tyler assured me that you only get married once and Amanda deserves the best. More troubling were Tyler's direct approaches to me about additional expenses. He suggested that I should contribute to their honeymoon fund, explaining that a proper honeymoon would help them start their marriage without financial stress. He mentioned that many families help young couples with down payments for houses, implying that this was an expected gesture rather than a generous gift. During these conversations, Amanda remained strangely silent or actively supported Tyler's requests. The daughter who had once been my closest confidant now seemed like a stranger parroting her fiancé's words about investment in their future and family responsibility. When I tried to speak with her privately about the mounting expenses, she became defensive and accused me of not wanting her to be happy. I began to notice other changes too. Amanda's style shifted toward more expensive clothing and accessories. Her apartment gradually filled with costly furniture and electronics that seemed beyond what her salary could comfortably support. When I complimented a beautiful necklace she wore to dinner, she mentioned that Tyler had bought it because he believes in investing in quality. My unease grew into genuine concern when Tyler began making comments about my living situation. He suggested that I should consider selling my apartment and buying something larger for when grandchildren come along. He questioned whether my retirement savings were sufficient and offered to help me review my investment portfolio. These offers felt more like intrusions than kindness, especially when he became persistent after I politely declined. The final warning sign came during a family gathering when Tyler spoke dismissively about my restaurant job to Amanda's cousins. He described it as temporary and said he was helping Arlene plan her transition onto a more suitable career. The implication that my honest work was somehow beneath their social status infuriated me, but I remained quiet to avoid causing a scene at what was supposed to be a celebration. Amanda's reaction to Tyler's comment was what truly worried me. Instead of defending the job that had helped pay for her education and opportunities, she looked embarrassed and quickly changed the subject. In that moment, I realized that Tyler wasn't just influencing her financial decisions, he was changing how she viewed our family's history and the sacrifices we had made together. The sleepless nights began after that family gathering. Something about Tyler's confidence in discussing my future without consulting me felt predatory rather than caring. I decided to do what any concerned mother would do. I started paying closer attention to the details of Tyler's life that didn't quite add up. My first stop was the internet. Tyler's LinkedIn profile showcased an impressive career trajectory at Meridian Financial Consulting. According to his posts, he specialized in helping high-net-worth individuals optimize their investment strategies. His education credentials were exactly as Amanda had described. On the surface, everything appeared legitimate and successful. Facebook revealed more personal information. Tyler had been married before something he had never mentioned to Amanda or me. The wedding photos from 4 years ago showed him with a blonde woman named Jessica at what appeared to be an expensive destination wedding in Mexico. The divorce wasn't mentioned anywhere, but the photos simply stopped appearing after about 18 months. A casual conversation with my neighbor's daughter, who worked in finance downtown, provided the next piece of the puzzle. When I mentioned Tyler's name and company, she frowned and said she thought someone by that name had been let go from a firm recently, though she couldn't remember which one. The uncertainty in her voice suggested this wasn't public knowledge, but rather office gossip that might contain some truth. I called Meridian Financial Consulting, directly claiming to be interested in their services and specifically requesting Tyler. The receptionist politely informed me that Tyler was no longer with the company and had left approximately 6 months ago. When I asked for his new contact information, she said they weren't able to provide that, but could connect me with another consultant who specialized in similar services. 6 months. Tyler had been unemployed for 6 months while planning an expensive wedding and encouraging Amanda to upgrade their lifestyle. The timeline coincided perfectly with the escalation in his interest in my finances and his sudden availability for extended lunch meetings and weekday wedding planning sessions. Further investigation revealed more troubling details. Through a friend who worked in banking, I learned that Tyler had significant credit card debt and had been denied for a mortgage pre-approval twice in the past year. His financial situation was apparently precarious enough that lenders considered him a high-risk borrower, despite his impressive resume. The most disturbing discovery came through overheard conversations. Tyler's voice carried clearly from Amanda's apartment balcony to mine when the windows were open during warm evenings. During one phone call that I couldn't help but overhear, he discussed the mother's assets with someone he called his financial advisor. He mentioned my estimated net worth, my conservative investment approach, and his plans to help them make better decisions after the wedding. My actual financial situation was something I had worked decades to build. After selling our family home following my husband's death, I had invested the proceeds carefully in a diversified portfolio of stocks and bonds. My steady employment at the bank provided reliable income and excellent benefits, while my restaurant tips went directly into savings. Over 15 years, this strategy had built a retirement fund of approximately $180,000 and a total net worth approaching $350,000. This information wasn't something I shared casually, but Amanda knew the general details because we had discussed my retirement plans and her inheritance. The fact that Tyler was discussing specific numbers with someone else meant that Amanda was sharing confidential family financial information, probably without realizing the implications. I made an appointment with my attorney to discuss asset protection strategies. Marcus Henderson had helped me navigate the legal complexities of single parenthood and financial planning after my husband's death. Now I needed his advice about protecting my assets from someone who seemed to view my money as a solution to his problems. Marcus suggested moving a significant portion of my savings into accounts that would be harder to access through family pressure or legal manipulation. He also recommended documenting any requests for money or unusual financial pressure in case legal action became necessary later. These precautions felt dramatic, but Marcus assured me they were sensible given the circumstances. The most painful part of this investigation was watching Amanda transform into someone I barely recognized. The daughter who had once called me her best friend now seemed uncomfortable during our brief phone conversations. She avoided visiting my apartment, claiming she was too busy with work and wedding planning. When I suggested mother-daughter activities we used to enjoy, like shopping or cooking together, she made excuses or brought Tyler along to serve as a buffer between us. Tyler had convinced Amanda that my concerns about money were unreasonable and controlling. In his version of events, I was a possessive mother who couldn't accept my daughter's happiness and success. Amanda began parroting his language, accusing me of financial anxiety and suggesting that I seek therapy to deal with my trust issues around money. The manipulation was subtle but effective. Tyler never directly asked Amanda to choose between him and me. Instead, he positioned himself as the reasonable voice, trying to help us both navigate my emotional problems with their relationship. Amanda, desperate to believe that her perfect fiancé was exactly who he claimed to be, accepted this narrative and began distancing herself from me to avoid conflict. As the wedding date approached, I realized that I was fighting for more than just my financial security. I was fighting for my daughter's future and our relationship. Tyler's plan seemed designed to isolate Amanda from her support system while gaining control over resources that could solve his financial problems. If I allowed this wedding to proceed without exposing the truth, I might lose both my daughter and the security I had spent decades building. The morning of the wedding arrived with perfect California weather. Clear blue skies stretched endlessly over Malibu Beach, and gentle waves lapped at the shoreline, where 80 white chairs faced an elegant archway decorated with white roses and flowing fabric. I had paid $45,000 for this dream wedding, and despite everything I had discovered about Tyler, the beauty of the setting took my breath away. Amanda's preparation began before dawn in the bridal suite overlooking the ocean. I arrived early to help her with her hair and makeup, hoping for a private moment to share my concerns one final time. She looked radiant in her flowing white dress, her dark hair swept into an elegant updo adorned with pearl pins that had belonged to her grandmother. But the warmth between us that I remembered from her childhood was replaced by polite distance. Amanda thanked me for my help with crisp formality, as if I were a hired assistant rather than her mother. When I tried to start a conversation about her future happiness and financial security, she cut me off with sharp efficiency. "Mom, I don't want to discuss this today," she said, her reflection meeting my eyes in the vanity mirror. "Tyler and I have everything figured out. We're adults who can make our own decisions without your input." The words stung because they sounded exactly like something Tyler would say. This wasn't Amanda's voice or Amanda's typical way of expressing frustration. She had adopted Tyler's condescending tone and his dismissive attitude toward my concerns. In that moment, I realized how completely he had influenced her thinking during their engagement. I tried a different approach, speaking gently about my love for her and my hope that she would always feel comfortable coming to me with problems. Amanda's response was to accuse me of gaslighting her on her wedding day. She said I was trying to manipulate her emotions to get my way, and that Tyler had helped her recognize my controlling patterns. The conversation ended when Amanda asked me to leave so she could finish preparing in peace. As I walked toward the door, I wondered if this would be the last real conversation I would ever have with my daughter. Tyler's plan to isolate her from family was working perfectly, and after today, his influence would likely become even stronger. 30 minutes before the ceremony was scheduled to begin, Tyler appeared at my side as I stood near the catering tent, watching final preparations. He was handsome in his tailored tuxedo, his smile confident and practiced, but his eyes held an intensity that made my stomach tighten with apprehension. "Arlene, we need to talk," he said, guiding me away from the other guests toward a quieter area near the resort's landscaped gardens. "There's something important we need to discuss before I marry your daughter." What followed was the most surreal conversation of my life. Tyler explained that he and Amanda had been discussing my financial obligations to their future. According to him, I owed them $60,000 as an investment in their new life together. This money would cover a down payment on a house and startup capital for his new consulting business, which would provide security for Amanda's future. "It's really not negotiable," Tyler continued, his voice taking on a harder edge. "Amanda and I have already made commitments based on this contribution from you. The house we want requires a larger down payment than we initially calculated, and my business launch timeline depends on having adequate capital." I asked what would happen if I refused to provide this money. Tyler's mask of civility dropped completely. He told me that if I didn't transfer the $60,000 immediately, I should leave the wedding and never contact Amanda again. He said my negativity and financial selfishness were toxic to their relationship, and Amanda agreed completely with his assessment. "Amanda doesn't need a mother who prioritizes money over her daughter's happiness," Tyler said, with cold certainty. "If you can't support us financially, then you're not supporting us at all." As if summoned by his words, Amanda appeared beside us, still radiant in her wedding dress, but with an expression I had never seen before. Her face was set in hard lines that made her look like a stranger. When I turned to her for support, hoping that surely she would defend our relationship against Tyler's ultimatum, she instead nodded in agreement with everything he had said. "Mum, it's time for you to show that you actually want me to be happy," Amanda said, her voice steady and sure. "Tyler is offering you the chance to invest in our future instead of just hoarding money for yourself. If you can't do this for us, then maybe it's better if you're not part of our lives." The shock of hearing those words from my daughter's lips was greater than any physical pain I had ever experienced. This was the child I had raised alone, worked double shifts, sacrificed everything for. Now she stood beside a man who had convinced her that my love was conditional on financial transactions, and she believed him completely. Both Tyler and Amanda waited for my response, clearly expecting me to either comply with their demands or leave in defeat. Tyler's expression was smugly confident, as if he had already won a game I didn't know we were playing. Amanda looked determined but slightly anxious, perhaps hoping I would choose to pay rather than lose her forever. Instead of responding with shock tears or anger as they obviously expected, I found myself smiling. The expression seemed to confuse them both, and Tyler's confidence faltered slightly as he tried to interpret my reaction. "You've forgotten something important," I said quietly, my smile growing wider as I realized the full extent of their miscalculation. Tyler's expression shifted from confidence to uncertainty as he processed my unexpected reaction. Amanda frowned, clearly confused by my calm demeanor, when she had expected either compliance or emotional collapse. Around us, wedding guests continued their conversations, unaware that the ceremony they had come to celebrate was about to implode. "What are you talking about?" Tyler demanded, his voice losing its practiced smoothness. "We haven't forgotten anything. We're offering you a simple choice support. Amanda's future, or get out of our lives." I reached into my purse and withdrew my phone, holding it where both of them could see the screen. "I've been recording this entire conversation," I said, watching Tyler's face drain of color. "Every word about demanding $60,000, every threat about cutting contact with Amanda, every manipulation tactic you've used." Amanda started to speak, but I held up my hand to continue. "But that's not what you really overlooked. Tyler, do you remember who signed all the contracts for this wedding? Who put down the deposits with the resort, the caterer, the photographer, the musicians?" The realization hit him like a physical blow. In his eagerness to let me pay for everything, Tyler had never questioned why I insisted on handling all the vendor relationships myself. He had assumed it was maternal generosity, or perhaps a controlling tendency. He never realized it was strategic protection. "Every single contract for this wedding is in my name," I continued, my voice steady and clear. "The resort, the flowers, the food, the music, the photographer documenting this beautiful day. I can cancel every bit of it with a single phone call, and there's nothing you can do to stop me." Tyler's confident facade crumbled entirely. "You wouldn't," he said, but his voice carried no conviction. "You wouldn't ruin Amanda's wedding day." "Watch me," I replied, then raised my voice slightly so that several nearby guests would hear what came next. Amanda's cousin, Sarah, Amanda's college roommate, Jennifer, and Tyler's groomsman, Michael, were all within earshot as I continued. "I know about your previous marriage that you never mentioned to Amanda. I know about your unemployment for the past 6 months. I know about your credit card debt and your failed mortgage applications. I know about the phone calls where you discussed my assets with your so-called financial advisor." Amanda's face went white as she began to understand the scope of Tyler's deception. "That's not true," she whispered, but her eyes were already searching Tyler's expression for confirmation or denial. Tyler attempted damage control. "Arlene is having some kind of breakdown," he announced loudly enough for the growing cluster of nearby guests to hear. "She's trying to sabotage our wedding because she can't accept that Amanda doesn't need her anymore." But I had prepared for this moment. From my purse, I produced printed screenshots of Tyler's text messages with his friend Derek. Messages I had obtained through a private investigator Marcus had recommended. The texts detailed Tyler's plan to milk the old lady for everything she's worth, and his confidence that Amanda is so desperate to get married that she'll support whatever I tell her. I handed the papers to Amanda, watching her face as she read Tyler's words, describing her as easy to manipulate, and me as sitting on a gold mine of retirement money just waiting to be accessed. Jennifer, Amanda's college roommate, moved closer to read over Amanda's shoulder. Her gasp was audible as she saw Tyler's crude descriptions of his plans. Other guests began gathering, sensing that something dramatic was unfolding. "These could be fake," Tyler said desperately, but his voice cracked with panic. "Anyone can create fake text messages." "Call Derek," I suggested calmly. "Call him right now and ask him about your conversations regarding Amanda's family money. Put it on speaker so everyone can hear his response." Tyler's silence spoke volumes. Amanda stared at the papers in her hands. Her dream wedding dress suddenly seeming like a costume in a play where she didn't understand her role. Tears began forming in her eyes as the reality of Tyler's manipulation became undeniable. "I trusted you," she whispered to Tyler, her voice breaking. "I defended you against my mother. I believed everything you told me about her trying to control us." More guests had gathered now, including Tyler's groomsmen and several family members from both sides. The beautiful wedding ceremony was transforming into a public exposure of fraud and manipulation, exactly the outcome Tyler had never anticipated. I pulled out my phone and dialed the resort's event coordinator. "Hello, this is Arlene Patterson. I need to speak with you about the wedding scheduled to begin in 20 minutes. There's been a development that requires immediate attention." Tyler lunged toward me, trying to grab the phone, but Amanda's cousin David stepped between us. "Let her finish the call," David said firmly. He had heard enough of the conversation to understand that Tyler was not the victim in this situation. The event coordinator confirmed that since all contracts were in my name, I had complete authority to modify or cancel the event. I thanked her and hung up, then turned back to Tyler and Amanda. "Here's what's going to happen," I announced loud enough for all the gathered guests to hear clearly. "Tyler, you have exactly 5 minutes to leave this property. Security will escort you out if necessary. Amanda, we're going to have a private conversation about what happens next." Tyler made one final attempt to regain control. "Amanda, don't let her do this to us," he pleaded. "We can work through whatever problems there might be. Don't let your mother destroy our future together." But Amanda was staring at the text messages, rereading Tyler's words about her being desperate and easy to control. The spell he had cast over her during their relationship was finally breaking, replaced by the horrible clarity of understanding how completely she had been manipulated. "Get out," Amanda said quietly, then louder. "Get out. I never want to see you again." Tyler looked around at the circle of witnesses, all of whom had heard enough to understand that he was the architect of this disaster. His carefully constructed image as a successful businessman and devoted fiancé lay in ruins around him. Without another word, he turned and walked toward the parking lot, his expensive tuxedo, the only remaining evidence of the wedding that would never be. The immediate aftermath of Tyler's departure felt surreal. 80 wedding guests stood in confused clusters on the beautiful beach, their elegant attire contrasting sharply with the chaos that had just unfolded. Some whispered among themselves, trying to piece together what they had witnessed. Others approached Amanda with expressions of concern and support. Amanda collapsed into one of the white chairs intended for the ceremony, her wedding dress pooling around her like a symbol of dreams that had turned to nightmares. She clutched the printed text messages in her hands, rereading them as if hoping the words would somehow change. Each time she looked up, fresh tears streamed down her carefully applied makeup. I knelt beside my daughter's chair, my own emotions swinging between relief that Tyler was gone and heartbreak at seeing Amanda's devastation. "Sweetheart," I said gently, "I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. I tried to warn you, but I wouldn't listen." Amanda finished, her voice barely audible above the sound of waves. "I thought you were jealous or controlling or I don't even know what I thought. I just believed everything he told me about you." Jennifer approached us cautiously, having dismissed the photographer and musicians on Amanda's behalf. "What can we do?" she asked. "How can we help?" The practical questions were overwhelming. Food had been prepared for 80 people. Flowers decorated every surface. A 3-tier cake waited in the resort's kitchen. Guests had traveled from across the country, taking vacation time and paying for hotels and flights. The financial loss was staggering, but it felt insignificant compared to the emotional wreckage. Amanda's Aunt Margaret, my sister-in-law, took charge of addressing the guests. She explained that there would be no ceremony, but invited everyone to stay for the reception dinner as a family gathering. Some guests chose to leave, but many remained, offering support and sharing their own stories of relationships that had revealed hidden truths. During the dinner that should have been a wedding reception, several people approached me privately to share their observations about Tyler. Amanda's college friends admitted they had found him controlling and condescending, but hadn't wanted to interfere with her happiness. My neighbor's daughter confirmed that Tyler's termination from Meridian Financial had been related to client complaints about unauthorized investment recommendations. Most revealing was a conversation with Derek, Tyler's supposed best friend and groomsman. Derek sought me out during the dinner, clearly uncomfortable with what he felt obligated to share. He confirmed that Tyler had indeed discussed plans to access my money through Amanda, but Derek had assumed it was just talk, born from financial desperation. "I should have warned someone," Derek said, staring into his untouched plate of food. "Tyler has been in debt since his divorce. His ex-wife got half of everything and he never recovered financially. When he met Amanda, he saw her as his way back to the lifestyle he wanted." Derek also revealed that Tyler had researched my financial situation extensively, using Amanda's casual mentions of my work history and retirement planning to estimate my net worth. The depth of Tyler's calculation and manipulation was more extensive than even I had realized. Amanda listened to these revelations with growing horror. Each new detail highlighted how completely Tyler had orchestrated their relationship around financial gain rather than genuine affection. She began to recognize manipulation tactics that had seemed like caring attention during their courtship. "He always insisted on expensive restaurants and activities," Amanda said, slowly connecting dots that had been invisible to her before. "Then he would mention how those experiences were what I deserved, how my family should support that lifestyle. I thought he was encouraging me to value myself, but he was actually preparing me to expect financial support from you." The most painful realization was understanding how Tyler had systematically destroyed Amanda's relationship with me. He had reinterpreted every interaction between us through a lens that made me appear controlling and financially withholding. Amanda's natural desire to please her fiancé had made her accept his version of events rather than trusting her own judgment about our relationship. As the evening wound down, Amanda made the decision to return to my apartment, rather than face the home she had shared with Tyler. She was terrified of seeing him again, and unsure about her legal rights regarding their shared lease and belongings. I assured her that we would figure everything out together, one step at a time. The drive back to my modest apartment was quiet, except for Amanda's occasional tears. She apologized repeatedly for believing Tyler's lies about me, for defending him against my concerns, for allowing their relationship to damage our bond. I assured her that my love was unconditional, and that the important thing was moving forward together. Back in my living room, surrounded by the familiar furniture and photographs that Tyler had criticized as inadequate, Amanda finally felt safe enough to fully process what had happened. She called in sick to work for the rest of the week, needing time to untangle the psychological manipulation she had experienced. The financial aftermath was significant, but manageable. I recovered about half of the wedding expenses through vendor cancellation policies and resold items like flowers and decorations. The emotional cost was harder to calculate, but it felt like a worthwhile investment in protecting both Amanda's future and our relationship. Most importantly, the crisis had revealed the strength of our family bonds and the wisdom of the financial caution I had maintained throughout my life. Tyler's plan had backfired completely because he had underestimated both my resourcefulness and my determination to protect my daughter, regardless of the personal cost. The weeks following the wedding that never was unfolded like a slow healing process. Amanda took a leave of absence from work using vacation time. She had been saving for her honeymoon to instead focus on untangling her life from Tyler's influence. She moved back into my apartment temporarily, sleeping in her childhood bedroom while figuring out her next steps. The first challenge was dealing with Tyler's attempts to contact her. He called constantly during the first 3 days, alternating between apologies and accusations. His messages ranged from desperate pleas for forgiveness to angry rants about how I had poisoned Amanda against him. Amanda blocked his number after consulting with a lawyer about potential harassment charges. Tyler's desperation became apparent when he showed up at Amanda's workplace, trying to convince her co-workers that I had manipulated her into leaving him. Security escorted him from the building, and Amanda's supervisor recommended she document these incidents in case legal action became necessary. The man who had appeared so polished and controlled during their relationship was revealing himself to be unstable when his plans fell apart. More disturbing was discovering the extent of Tyler's financial deception. When Amanda gathered her belongings from their shared apartment, she found credit card statements and loan documents that Tyler had hidden throughout their relationship. His debt was even larger than I had suspected, including multiple maxed-out credit cards and a personal loan from a payday lending company with devastating interest rates. Amanda also found evidence that Tyler had been researching my financial information far more extensively than we realized. He had printed articles about retirement planning, inheritance laws, and even strategies for accessing elderly relatives' assets. A notebook contained detailed calculations about my estimated net worth and plans for gradually increasing my financial contributions to their lifestyle. He had our whole future mapped out. Amanda told me one evening, sitting cross-legged on my couch with Tyler's notebook open in front of her. Year 1, get you to pay for the wedding and help with a house down payment. Year 2, convince you to invest in his business. Year 3, suggest you move in with us to help with grandchildren while turning over management of your finances. The psychological manipulation had been even more sophisticated than the financial scheming. Tyler had gradually isolated Amanda from friends who might question his behavior, always with reasonable-sounding explanations. Her college roommate Jennifer was too negative and jealous. Her work friends were not successful enough to understand their goals. I was controlling and unable to accept Amanda's independence. Amanda began seeing a therapist who specialized in emotional manipulation and narcissistic abuse. Dr. Patricia Williams helped Amanda understand that Tyler's behavior fit classic patterns of financial abuse, where controlling someone's money becomes a way to control their entire life. The therapy sessions were painful but necessary for Amanda to rebuild her sense of self-worth and judgment. During this healing process, our relationship slowly returned to its former closeness. Amanda apologized constantly for believing Tyler's lies about me, but I emphasized that she had been the victim of calculated deception rather than poor judgment. Smart, successful people fall for manipulation tactics every day, especially when the manipulator is skilled at identifying and exploiting their specific vulnerabilities. Amanda's vulnerability had been her desire for the stable two-parent family she had never experienced as a child. Tyler had presented himself as the perfect partner who could provide emotional and financial security, making her dream of the complete family she had always wanted seem finally achievable. His criticism of our relationship was designed to make her question whether her loyalty to me was preventing her from accessing that dream. The community response to our situation was surprisingly supportive. Several wedding guests reached out to share their relief that Tyler's true nature had been exposed, before Amanda legally bound herself to him. Amanda's co-workers, who had been uncomfortable with Tyler's controlling behavior but hesitant to interfere, expressed their support for her decision to end the relationship. Most unexpectedly, 3 other women contacted Amanda after hearing about the situation through mutual friends. Each had dated Tyler at different times over the past 5 years, and each had experienced similar patterns of financial manipulation and emotional control. Their stories revealed that Tyler's behavior with Amanda was not an isolated incident, but a practiced strategy he employed repeatedly. These conversations helped Amanda understand that Tyler's targeting of her was not personal, but opportunistic. He had identified her as someone with family resources, a strong work ethic, and emotional vulnerabilities that could be exploited. His entire courtship had been a calculated performance designed to position himself as her ideal partner while gaining access to financial stability. 6 months after the wedding that never was, Amanda was ready to move forward independently. She found a new apartment closer to her work, furnished it with pieces she chose entirely for her own taste rather than someone else's approval. She reconnected with friends she had distanced herself from during her relationship with Tyler, and made new friendships through activities she enjoyed. Most importantly, Amanda had learned to trust her own instincts again. The experience with Tyler had taught her to recognize red flags in relationships and to value her independence rather than seeking validation through someone else's approval. She was dating casually, but taking time to truly know potential partners before making emotional commitments. Our relationship had emerged stronger than before Tyler's manipulation temporarily damaged it. Amanda now understood the sacrifices I had made as a single mother and appreciated the financial security I had built through years of careful planning. She no longer saw my caution as controlling, but as protective wisdom born from experience. 8 months have passed since that surreal morning on Malibu Beach, and life has settled into a new rhythm that feels healthier and more authentic than anything Amanda experienced during her relationship with Tyler. She's thriving in her career, having received a promotion that came with both increased responsibility and a significant salary boost. The confidence she lost during Tyler's manipulation has returned stronger than before. Amanda is dating again, but her approach to relationships has completely transformed. She's seeing Marcus, a co-worker from her company's IT department, who makes her laugh and treats her with genuine respect. Their relationship developed slowly over months of friendship, built on shared interests and compatible values, rather than expensive gestures and overwhelming intensity. Marcus knows the entire story about Tyler and has never once asked about my finances or suggested that Amanda deserves anything beyond what she can provide for herself. The contrast between Tyler and Marcus couldn't be more striking. Where Tyler demanded expensive restaurants and criticized Amanda's modest apartment, Marcus suggests cooking dinner together and compliments her decorating style. Where Tyler isolated her from friends and family, Marcus encourages her relationships and has become genuinely fond of me through our regular Sunday dinners. Where Tyler spoke constantly about future financial plans that required my contribution, Marcus talks about building a life together based on their combined efforts and earnings. Our mother-daughter relationship has deepened in ways I never expected. Amanda now calls me several times a week just to chat about her day, sharing workplace stories, and asking for advice about everything from career decisions to recipe modifications. She's also become protective of me in return, checking that I'm taking care of myself, and even suggesting we take a vacation together, using some of the money saved from the cancelled wedding expenses. The financial lessons from our experience have influenced both of our approaches to money management. Amanda has become much more interested in understanding investments and retirement planning, asking me to teach her the strategies I used to build security as a single mother. She's opened her own investment accounts and is building her own emergency fund, determined never to be financially dependent on a romantic partner. I've also made some changes to my financial approach, though they're more about enjoying life than protecting assets. With Amanda safely independent and our relationship stronger than ever, I've allowed myself some luxuries I had denied myself for years. I bought a reliable new car to replace my old sedan, not because Tyler was right about needing better transportation, but because I deserved something comfortable and worry-free after decades of practical choices. The broader lessons from our experience have shaped how we both think about relationships and family. Amanda learned that love should never require financial transactions or cutting ties with people who care about you. I learned that protecting someone you love sometimes means standing firm against their anger and disappointment, trusting that truth will eventually prevail over manipulation. Tyler's impact on our lives ended up being unexpectedly positive in the long term. His manipulation forced us to examine our relationship and our individual boundaries more carefully than we might have otherwise. Amanda developed skills for recognizing emotional manipulation that will serve her well throughout her life. I discovered reserves of strength and determination I didn't know I possessed when protecting my family became necessary. We've heard through mutual friends that Tyler left California entirely after his behavior became known in his professional and social circles. Several of his former girlfriends shared their experiences more widely, making it difficult for him to continue his pattern of financial manipulation in our community. While I don't wish him harm, I'm grateful that his ability to hurt other women has been limited by the exposure of his tactics. The money I had planned to spend on Amanda's wedding has been redirected toward experiences we can share together. We've taken 2 wonderful trips, one to New York City, where we saw Broadway shows and visited museums, and another to Hawaii, where we relaxed on beaches far more beautiful than the one where Tyler made his demands. These adventures have created new memories that have nothing to do with romance or marriage, but everything to do with the enduring bond between us. Amanda often says that Tyler's manipulation taught her the difference between someone who loves her and someone who loves what she can provide. The experience clarified her values and her priorities in ways that will influence every relationship she forms going forward. She's grateful now for my intervention, even though it was painful at the time. Looking back, I realized that my calm smile on that wedding day came from a lifetime of facing challenges and finding solutions. Single motherhood taught me that panic rarely improves difficult situations, while clear thinking and careful planning almost always do. Tyler's demands felt shocking to him and Amanda, but to me they felt like just another problem requiring a strategic response. The most important lesson from our experience is that genuine love doesn't require financial proof or family sacrifice. Real love supports your best interests, even when that means uncomfortable confrontations or temporary anger. Tyler's version of love demanded payment and isolation from people who cared about Amanda's well-being. My version of love was willing to risk our relationship temporarily to protect her future permanently. As I watch Amanda build a life based on her own choices and values, I'm reminded that the best gift parents can give their children is not money, but the skills and confidence to create their own security and happiness. The $45,000 I spent on that cancelled wedding was worth every penny because it revealed Tyler's true nature before Amanda legally bound herself to someone who saw her as a financial opportunity rather than a beloved partner. People sometimes ask if I regret handling the situation so dramatically, whether there might have been a quieter way to expose Tyler's manipulation without the public confrontation. My answer is always the same: dramatic problems sometimes require dramatic solutions. Tyler's plan was sophisticated and patient, designed to gradually separate Amanda from her support system, while gaining control over resources that represented decades of my hard work and sacrifice. The nuclear option of threatening to cancel the wedding was the only response that could cut through his manipulation quickly enough to save Amanda from years of financial and emotional abuse. Sometimes protecting the people you love requires wielding whatever power you have with decisive action, even when that action appears harsh to outside observers. Today, Amanda and Marcus are talking about a future together, but their conversations focus on shared goals and mutual support rather than financial expectations from family members. When they do marry, it will be a celebration of two independent people choosing to build something together, not a transaction designed to provide one person with access to another's resources. I've learned that the smile Tyler didn't expect came from a place of deep confidence in the values and principles I had spent a lifetime developing. Sometimes standing up for what's right requires risking everything you hold dear, but the alternative is watching manipulation destroy the people and relationships you value most. In the end, love that demands payment isn't love at all, and protecting someone from that realization is the greatest gift you can give them. Have you ever had to choose between keeping peace and protecting someone you love? What would you do if you discovered a family member was being financially manipulated? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story reminded you of the importance of protecting your family's financial security, please like this video and subscribe for more real-life stories about family money and relationships. Share this with someone who needs to hear that real love never comes with a price tag. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is smile when someone expects you to surrender. I hope your families are built on genuine love and mutual respect, not financial transactions and emotional manipulation.